Imagine standing on the surface of the moon. Above you, the Earth hangs in a black sky, impossibly blue, impossibly distant. Around you, nothing but silence and a landscape of gray dust stretching to the horizon. And beneath your feet, the raw material for humanity's greatest construction project. Not steel. Not concrete. Not anything we brought from home. The very ground you're standing on, combined with something the human body produces every single day, could become the foundation of the first city beyond Earth. That something is urea. And the story of how scientists discovered this unlikely building material is one of the most fascinating chapters in the history of space exploration. We tend to imagine future moon bases as gleaming structures of titanium and reinforced glass, hauled piece by piece from Earth at enormous cost. That vision, while thrilling, runs headlong into a brutal mathematical reality. Launching a single kilogram of material into space costs thousands of dollars. A moon base capable of housing even a small crew of astronauts would require hundreds of tons of structural material. The arithmetic is punishing. Even at the most optimistic projections for the future of launch technology, ferrying building supplies from Earth to the lunar surface would represent a financial and logistical obstacle that could delay permanent human settlement for generations. This is why scientists have spent decades asking a different question entirely. Not what can we bring to the moon, but what can we find there? The answer, it turns out, is more promising than anyone initially expected. The lunar surface is covered in a material called regolith, a layer of fine, fragmented rock and dust created over billions of years by meteorite impacts and the relentless bombardment of solar radiation. Regolith is everywhere on the moon. It is, quite literally, inexhaustible. And researchers have long suspected that if they could find a way to bind this material together into a sturdy, load-bearing solid, they would have a nearly limitless local source of construction material available to future lunar settlers. The challenge is the binder. On Earth, the construction industry uses concrete, a mixture of aggregate material and cement paste that, when combined with water, undergoes a chemical reaction and hardens into one of the most durable and versatile solid substances humans have ever produced. Lunar regolith can serve as the aggregate. But water on the moon, while present in permanently shadowed craters near the poles, is far too precious a resource to spend on concrete production. Every drop of water on the moon has potential value for drinking, for life support, for producing rocket propellant. Pouring it into building foundations is a luxury that no realistic mission profile can easily afford, so the search was on for a binder that could harden lunar regolith without consuming water. Researchers around the world experimented with sulfur, with polymers, with various chemical approaches. Some showed promise. None were quite right. Then, in 2020, a team of researchers in Europe published a study that sent genuine ripples through the space architecture and materials science communities. Their proposed binder was not exotic. It was not the product of decades of advanced chemistry. It was, in fact, one of the oldest and most abundant biological compounds on Earth. And it was something that any human crew on the moon would be producing continuously, as a natural byproduct of simply being alive. Urea is the primary nitrogen-containing compound in human urine. Your body produces it constantly as a waste product of protein metabolism. It is so mundane, so ordinary, so deeply embedded in the everyday biological machinery of life that most people never give it a second thought. But chemists have known for a long time that urea has remarkable properties as a plasticizer, a substance capable of disrupting the molecular structure of other compounds and making them more workable, more fluid, more amenable to being shaped before they set. And when the European research team began testing urea as an additive to simulated lunar regolith mixtures, what they found exceeded their expectations. Geopolymer concrete, the specific type of binder chemistry being explored, works by activating the silicate minerals present in the regolith using an alkaline solution. The resulting material, when cured, is structurally robust. But the process without additives produces a mixture that is stiff, difficult to work with, and prone to cracking as it sets. The researchers discovered that adding urea to the mix at relatively low concentrations changed everything. The urea acted as a plasticizer, making the mixture significantly more fluid and workable. But it did something else too. It made the final hardened material stronger. More resistant to compression. More capable of bearing load. The structures produced from urea-enhanced regolith concrete were not just easier to build, they were better. The numbers matter here. In testing, the urea-enhanced mixtures demonstrated compressive strength values comparable to, and in some cases exceeding, the concrete used in ordinary construction projects on Earth. For a material that can be produced almost entirely from local lunar resources, supplemented only by a biological compound that a crew of astronauts would generate as a natural consequence of living, this is an extraordinary result. It means that the human body itself becomes part of the construction supply chain. The crew does not merely inhabit the base, they contribute, metabolically, to building it. Now, it is worth being precise about what the science does and does not yet tell us. The experiments conducted so far have used simulated lunar regolith, materials engineered on Earth to approximate the chemical composition of actual lunar soil. The conditions of a real lunar environment, extreme temperature swings, vacuum, radiation, present additional challenges that laboratory testing cannot fully replicate. The path from a promising laboratory result to a functioning construction technique on the lunar surface is long, and there are many obstacles yet to be navigated. The researchers who published this work were the first to say so. But science advances in exactly this way, through results that open doors, that reframe what is possible, that invite the next generation of questions. And what this result opened was a door that the space architecture community had been searching for. A locally sourced, biologically derived binder. A construction material that gets better, not worse, with the addition of something the crew cannot help but produce. A lunar building block that is, in the most literal sense, human. The implications of this discovery reach far beyond the moon. They touch on fundamental questions about how our species will sustain itself when it eventually spreads to Mars, to the asteroid belt, to worlds we have not yet imagined. But to understand where this science is taking us, we first need to understand how it actually works, the chemistry happening at the molecular level when urea meets regolith, and the engineering challenges that researchers are now racing to solve. So we've seen how urea transforms lunar regolith into something workable, how a molecule produced by the human body can unlock the potential of alien soil. But the story doesn't stop at chemistry. It extends into something far more profound, the question of what it actually means to build a civilization somewhere other than Earth. The researchers who first proposed using urea as a plasticizer weren't just solving an engineering problem. They were articulating a philosophy. The philosophy that long-duration space exploration cannot depend on an endless supply chain from home. Every kilogram launched from Earth costs thousands of dollars. Every system that relies on resupply is a system with a vulnerability. And on the moon, vulnerability is not an abstraction. It is the difference between a crew that survives and a crew that doesn't. Urea changes the equation in a fundamental way. The average adult human produces roughly 30 grams of urea per day through normal metabolic processes. A crew of 6 astronauts, over the course of a single month, would produce enough urea to become a meaningful construction resource. This is not supplementary material. This is a supply that regenerates itself as long as the crew is alive and eating protein. The more ambitious the mission, the larger the crew, and the larger the crew, the more urea becomes available. The resource scales with human presence itself. This idea, that human biology can be a construction feedstock, is one of the most quietly radical concepts in modern space science. For decades, we've thought about what astronauts need to survive. Water, food, oxygen, radiation shielding. Urea inverts one small part of that equation and asks, what can astronauts provide? What does the human body contribute to the built environment around it? The implications ripple outward. Scientists at the European Space Agency have emphasized that urea is just one example of a broader design paradigm they call waste-to-resource architecture. On a moon base, nothing can be wasted. Carbon dioxide exhaled by the crew can feed plant growth systems. Heat generated by electronics can warm living quarters. And urea, filtered from urine through systems that are already being refined for long-duration missions, can be redirected into the structural fabric of the base itself. The base breathes with its inhabitants. It grows as they work. It is, in a very real sense, made partly from them. There are still significant technical challenges to overcome before any of this becomes operational reality. The geopolymer mixtures developed in laboratories on Earth have shown tremendous promise, but the moon is not a laboratory. Temperatures on the lunar surface swing from over 120 degrees Celsius in sunlight to negative 170 degrees Celsius in darkness. These thermal extremes can cause materials to expand and contract in ways that create structural fatigue over time. Researchers are still working to understand exactly how urea-enhanced geopolymer concrete will behave through thousands of such cycles across years and decades. There is also the question of gravity. The moon's gravitational pull is approximately 1/6 that of Earth. Concrete behaves differently when it cures, sets, and bears load in low gravity. The fluid dynamics of mixing, the behavior of trapped gas bubbles, the way stress distributes through a cured structure, all of these require recalibration. Earth-based testing can simulate lunar conditions to a degree, but only a mission to the moon can provide the final proof. And then there is the matter of construction itself. Who builds the base, and how? The current vision involves a combination of robotic systems and human labor. Rovers and automated mixing units would process regolith and prepare geopolymer mixtures. Three-dimensional printing systems, already tested on Earth with simulated lunar soil, would lay down the material in precise layers, building walls and ceilings according to pre-programmed architectural designs. Human astronauts would oversee operations, troubleshoot problems, and perform tasks that require judgment and dexterity that robots still cannot fully replicate. Some of the most exciting recent work has focused on making those 3D printing systems more adaptive. Rather than following a rigid blueprint, next-generation construction robots may be able to assess the local regolith composition in real time and adjust their mixture ratios accordingly. The Moon is not uniform. Different regions have different mineralogies. A system that can analyze what it has and optimize its output on the fly will be far more resilient than one that demands perfect inputs. Urea, as a flexible additive that improves workability across a range of geopolymer formulations, fits naturally into this adaptive approach. There is a poetic dimension to all of this that scientists themselves sometimes acknowledge. Urea was once the molecule that shadowed the boundary between the living and the non-living. In 1828, when Friedrich Wöhler synthesized urea from inorganic compounds in his laboratory, he inadvertently launched the field of organic chemistry and dismantled the long-held belief that the molecules of life required some special vital force to create them. Urea was proof that chemistry was chemistry, whether it happened inside a body or inside a flask. Now, nearly 2 centuries later, urea is dismantling another boundary. The boundary between the human body and the built environment. Between biological process and construction material. Between what we carry with us and what we build around us. On the Moon, those distinctions begin to collapse. The habitat is not separate from the people inside it. In a very literal sense, the people are part of what the habitat is made of. This is the vision that drives the researchers who study this problem. Not just a technical solution to a logistical challenge, but a reimagining of what it means to be present somewhere. To truly inhabit a world is not simply to land on it and survive. It is to integrate with it, to use what is there, to contribute something of yourself to the place you call home. Permanence requires participation. And on the Moon, that participation begins at the molecular level. The first moon base, whenever it comes, will be an extraordinary achievement of engineering and courage. But if the science being done today finds its full expression, it will also be something more intimate than any structure humanity has ever built. It will be shelter forged from the soil of another world and the metabolic output of the people who dared to live there. It will carry within its walls the chemical signature of human presence, a record, written in geopolymer and urea, that we came, we stayed, and we built something that lasted. That is the promise encoded in a molecule most of us have never thought twice about. And that promise, small and strange and quietly revolutionary, may one day be the foundation of everything. Join us soon for another documentary.